Hello, and welcome to episode 49 of the West Aurora 129 podcast. I'm Dr. Michael Smith, Superintendent of West Aurora School District 129, and I am excited to welcome you to our first podcast for the 2025-2026 school year. We're kicking things off by talking about some of the exciting changes happening in our elementary schools this year, most notably the launch of our new literacy curriculum. I am joined today by two special guests who bring both expertise and perspective to this important topic. First, we have Cynthia Ramos. Cynthia is a lifelong area resident who grew up on the east side and attended North Central College. And while she is a former Tomcat, we won't hold it against her, she spent the last 3 years here in West Aurora, first as a classroom teacher at Hall Elementary, and now serving as our department administrator of K-5 literacy and bilingual education. Cynthia, welcome, and thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Also joining us is Heather Turner. Heather attended McCleary Elementary School as a student, later spent 8 years as a paraprofessional, and today leads her own classroom as a fifth grade teacher at Nicholson Elementary. Heather, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you.
And I will say something that we both found in common, that is where I started. So I don't know if you have plans to be a superintendent. I'm kind of nervous to be following in my footsteps here. But again, welcome to both of you. As you heard, we have a pretty important topic that we want to get to as it relates to our new curriculum. But before we get to the meat of what we want to talk about, what we found last year as we talked to leaders is what we do in education is all about people. And I want our audience to know a little bit about your history. So we've done a little bit of homework. And we're going to let everybody know what all from your background you bring to the table. And Cynthia, you've been a lifelong area resident, but you've also done your share of world traveling. Can you tell us a little bit about your experiences and kind of how that impacted your role in what you do as a department administrator?
I find it very near and dear to my heart to step out of my comfort zone. And I think traveling is a really great way to do that, although it can be scary, although it's not in any way comparable to what our students may be feeling when, we have newcomer students. When we're traveling, we're usually traveling for leisure,
Sure.
But just being in those positions of being around a language that I don't understand, not being able to understand science, it gives me some type of glimpse as to what a student may be experiencing, whether they're new to the country, experiencing a new language. So I really value that, and just it has helped me have a more open mind about
Sure.
The different places that our students are from, the cultures that they
Sure.
have grown up in. And so I try to do it as much as I can.
That's awesome. And it is those little connections and opportunity to connect with someone's experience that you can relate to as you're coming alongside them as they're getting settled or situated here in our system. I love that. That's good. That's good. All right. And Heather, before you worked in education, you had a very different career.
Yes.
Can you tell us, what did you do right after graduating high school?
So after graduating high school, I joined the Army, and I was a military police officer where I
feel like I need to sit up straighter now. I don't know. Okay.
But I served as I'm an Iraq War veteran.
Awesome.
And then I was an investigator at Fort Bliss in Texas, right on the Juarez border in Mexico. And I did civil liaison work as well.
I love that. Well, first and foremost, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
I do not hesitate in honoring the effort that you put into the roles that you just articulated. And I'm just curious, are there seeds of those experiences that you bring forward with what you do today?
There is. So in the military, it's all about leadership and bringing groups of people together for a common goal. And really, that's what we're doing in the classroom as teachers. We're bringing the students together for a common goal in learning and bettering themselves. So, and especially as a police officer, it's all about working and helping communities. So it really does kind of tie in. I've always wanted to work with communities and work with people in communities to help them be better.
And what I heard both of you articulate in your experiences, it's not punitive, it's about partnership.
Yeah.
And I do appreciate that you have drawn on your past experiences to help support the partnership we're trying to establish with our students and with our families as it is appropriate. And now that we've heard a little bit about your backgrounds, let's jump into our topic and what we wanted to discuss today. But more than anything, we might want to help our listeners understand some of the vocabulary that sometimes we use. So I said literacy curriculum, and when someone says, well, we adopted HMH, Cynthia, what does that mean? Like HMH and some of the other pieces that go along with our literacy curriculum.
HMH stands for Houghton Mifflin Harcourt, which is the name of the publisher. So now within the publisher, they may have several different curriculums for different content areas, and we've adopted the literacy curriculum called Into Reading and the mirror resource for that, which is Arriba la Lectura.
Got it. And then Heather, for you, sometimes we say things like, we're going to do a quick check or an assessment. What does that mean within the program?
That really is just a quick glimpse, giving the students an opportunity to see what they picked up on during the lesson or what they didn't. And that really is just to inform me as the educator on what I still need to work on, or what certain groups of students still need work on, so that way I can kind of tailor my teaching for them.
Perfect. So, and I like the fact that you articulated you can tailor your teaching as a result of the information you find in the quick check. But more than anything, we would want our listeners or parents and families to understand that our literacy curriculum is a tool.
Yes.
It does not remove the responsibility and key role that you play as the teacher.
Correct.
But Cynthia, would you agree? It's the tool that we've identified. Now, was there a process we went through? Do you remember that you could walk us through really quickly? Cliff Notes version of how we got here with selecting this tool.
Yeah, so I was actually a part of the process. We had a committee formed within the district that had representatives from a wide variety of role, including administrators, building administrators, classroom teachers from every grade level, reading specialists, bilingual interventionists. It was a team really bringing in that expertise, again, from also every elementary school building. And throughout the course of not last school year, but the school year before that, we met 6 or 7 times across the school year. And we started with setting some criteria. We got to hear from a variety of different publishers, got to understand a little bit of the resources. And then as the year went on, we narrowed down to find the resource that would best fit our students. It was really a collective effort.
Very good. And piggybacking off of that, and Heather, I'm curious to hear from your perspective as a classroom teacher. Do you remember what led us to wanting to adopt a program based on where we were? What led to the change?
There were things that were missing in the literacy program that we saw students didn't have. I know that the writing skills that the students were producing wasn't what we had wanted. There were better opportunities that we could use with a different curriculum to increase their reading, their vocabulary, and their understanding of the English language as far as like word structure, syntax, and things in inferencing.
Sure. No, that's good. And to piggyback on that, from my seat, as I watched it all unfold, I also know at the time, our department administrators were working hard producing a lot of the curriculum and tailoring it to West Aurora School District. Yes. But at the same time, we had to look at ourselves in the mirror and articulate or realize the fact that, a good portion of our population was not able to access because we didn't have it in that ML, in a language that our ML students could access. I know we use the acronym ML. Cynthia, could you explain what that means versus how it's been used in the past, or the acronyms that have been used in the past?
Yeah, so ML stands for multilingual learners. Previously, you may have heard the terms ESL, English as a second language, or English language learner, ELL. We use the term ML or multilingual to honor that students may be working or learning multiple languages, not just English. English may be their third language, and really place all of those languages kind of in an equitable tier.
Sure. And this is something the program encompasses or accounts for.
Correct.
Perfect. So broadly speaking, I know we needed to come together and find a curriculum or a tool that not only pushed, as you said, the areas that we wanted to focus on, but had a mirrored tool to support our ML and bilingual students as well. So I will say first reactions as we're kind of launching this thing this year. How are we feeling?
There's a lot. It has a lot to it. So I mean, you can take from that what it is. I think as a teacher just getting into it, it can feel overwhelming because there's so much that we can pull from. But I think that the more that we get into it, the more we'll be able to use it effectively. The biggest thing that I've heard, at least from the students especially, is we do a lot of excerpts. And so the excerpts are great and they help us teach the skills that we're looking for. But they're like, how does the story end? You're going to have to find the story and read it. So I think that's been the biggest thing. But there's so many great things that have really come from it. And I've had so many great lessons where the students are engaged and they're excited for reading and they're excited to participate in the lesson.
Well, and as you said, with the excerpts, if it sparks curiosity, that's exactly the type of deep, comprehensive approach that we want students to engage their literacy and learning with, right?
Yes.
We want to tease that out to spark a question. I wonder how it ends, which then we can activate. I wonder once you find the story, did it match with your prediction, for example?
For
exactly
sure.
Strategies that good readers use, but I like that you pulled that out. And that is an intentional way that the program is built. Now, Cynthia, have you found that there are little, for lack of a better way to say it, tricks of the trade with how to approach the curriculum? And now that we've been in it, have you been able to coach teachers in terms of, okay, focus here, go deeper there? What have you found as you've gotten going here as a leader and someone who's supporting teachers?
Yeah, so there's definitely, it is a comprehensive program. So it addresses all of the different components of literacy, whether that be writing, comprehension, foundational skills. So it really, a key part of it is that the curriculum spirals. So not just because students are focusing on a certain skill for this week doesn't mean that they won't revisit it the next, within, a few weeks or in the following module. So that's just something to remember, that just to trust that spiral process. And then the other thing is the routines within the curriculum are very consistent throughout. So we've reminded teachers that the first module, the first unit, it feels everything's new, but then once you finish that, you'll see a lot of things come back, and hopefully within the next few years, the students have had experience working through those routines. So if they experience that in kindergarten, they can get to work in second grade and third grade, and it's very similar, obviously, now with those grade level skills.
Sure. And to your point, in the future, I think students will be able to access that muscle memory of having gone through it, which I know there are some growing pains as we're learning and utilizing the program this year, but we are positioning ourselves to be even that much stronger when we launch next year with the same. And as with anything new, it's hard. And I remember standing in front of the staff as I spoke with everyone and said, okay, how are we going to step out of our comfort zone, and are we going to embrace it? And we for sure are experiencing that across the board. I mean, we're talking elementary, but there's some secondary things that we're doing as well. But just to highlight, staying with our elementary folks, just to highlight how intentional we were about supporting this new curriculum, when we identified that we wanted Houghton Mifflin. You talked about the committee that met. There are things that you heard in terms of the process, but then you heard, we don't have enough time. So it actually took on a life of its own because there were some structural things that we needed to do as a school district to accommodate what we were trying to accomplish with the literacy. And that has to do with our elementary day. Okay. So I know we're not going to rehash the whole history lesson, but can you just talk about where we landed, Cynthia? And then Heather, I'm going to ask you, how have you seen the impact of the additional minutes in terms of from a classroom teacher's perspective? Could you highlight a little bit there?
Yeah, of course. So within our previous structure, our literacy instruction also included or embedded science and social science standards. And that was unique to the curriculum that was written in-house. So therefore, once we went with HMH, we needed those social science and those science skills to, live somewhere else within the day. And background knowledge, building background knowledge is very important for students' literacy development. Studies have shown that if they understand the background, they are also more likely to be able to engage in all of those comprehension skills. So after HMH was selected, we really looked deep into the elementary day and wanted to make sure that students had, ample time to engage in HMH, but also, again, continue developing as scientists and as social scientists.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Now, from an impact on a teacher's world, Heather, how have you seen the impact of those additional minutes?
We are able to engage in so much more aspects of reading. I remember we would be reading through the story, but then we would be cut short, and then we were sharing the minutes with writing. Now we have dedicated time for writing every single day. We also have dedicated time for grammar every single day, which is great. And then alternatively, we also have additional minutes for just word study, which is breaking down those words into the different prefixes, suffixes, Greek root words. And so being able for students to really just engage in all of those different aspects of literacy it's only been a few weeks, but I'm already starting to see so much more growth in these first few weeks of school than I did with my students last year with the literacy program we had last year.
Sure. No, that's good. And even in a minute's worth of an answer, you articulated that teaching goes way beyond just roll out the balls and get some crayons and draw some things. Quite honestly, I want to dispel that myth. There is truly an art to teaching students how to read. That is not something that happens naturally. And via the program and the effort of our leadership and teachers from in the past, we've come to where we are now to even build on the foundation that we've tried to establish, right? And the cyclical nature of the program, coupled with what you know as a classroom teacher, you now have a compare and contrast based on your experience. And I love that you're able to measure and see with the program, I'm seeing that development even faster, because I know that's a challenge. Because keeping up with the pacing is something that we've had to massage and work with, while that pressure of keeping up while you're still learning. Some of the feedback I've gotten is veteran teachers are like, I feel like I'm back in my first year again. And that's okay. If that's what it takes for us to understand where we need to be, right? So that what you just described, Heather, does not happen by accident. And I want to make sure our families know we didn't just crack open the manuals on day one, right? We were trying to be as intentional as possible to prepare our teachers for what it is they were going to experience this year. So Cynthia, can you talk about, and you led some of this, that's why I'm going to turn to you. Can you talk about a little bit of the professional development that we implemented in preparation for the launch this year?
So all the way starting when we finalized on choosing HMH in 2 Mays ago, then the following year started leadership and met with HMH so that we could better understand as department admins just the whole scope of the program, all of those pieces. And then we created a schedule of professional development for the entirety of last school year. We started in January with a thorough look at the Illinois Comprehensive Literacy Plan. And even before we had the HMH resources in front of teachers for them to engage in the science behind, like what you mentioned earlier, why are we instructing in this way? What's best practices and understanding, right, the background of why lessons are structured the way they are. And then for the following school improvement days, we had trainers from HMH come in and deliver professional development, whether that be on specifically foundational skills. We also offered trainings over the summer for teachers to, if they wanted to dig deeper into writing or into those instructional routines, they could come in. And we are continuing to provide that support this school year as well through a variety of different sessions. And our instructional coaches have also been a part of all of that and been very supportive of our teachers now that they've started instructing with HMH.
Sure. So what I heard is it's not good luck. We'll see. Let us know how it goes. We started up front to prepare you. We want to walk with you. Now that we're in it, let's see how it's going. And that will be a continual process throughout the year. Now, and I know everyone can't be at every training. You highlighted some things we offered in the summer. We offer different trainings during the school year on school improvement days. Heather, did you find those beneficial? Did they set you up well? Not to say that there isn't still work you had to do on your own, but
No, they definitely did. And I did take advantage of some of those summer PLs that we had over the summer. And I took advantage of the instructional coaches as well, which is really having somebody else to bounce ideas off of and work with to see how best to implement the program has been really helpful. And I think that it has really helped me be set up to be successful. So I really think that the district has done a nice job supporting teachers and getting what they need in order to be successful.
Sure. And I know on behalf of the administrators, they're still in conversations, even with Houghton Mifflin and the training staff that they have, to make sure as much as possible when trainers show up on our doorstep, they're here to train West Aurora teachers in what it looks like to teach West Aurora students. It's not just this broad-based, we're going to provide a general training and you guys do your best to connect it to what you're doing. Yeah. We're trying to bridge that gap, to your point, so that the training is relevant, right?
Yeah. And even with when we worked with one of the trainers right before school started, they came in thinking that we needed one thing. And then after getting started, they quickly realized, oh no, you need something completely different. And they completely adjusted and made sure that we had what we needed in order to be successful day one.
That's good. That's good. So I know this is a podcast. Yeah. A lot of folks are going to hear us as they're driving or on the radio or on their phone, however they access the podcast. But I'm going to ask you to do something pretty difficult.
Okay.
We're going to try and paint a picture of what the classroom looks like via descriptors. Now, for me, I'm used to this because I have a face for radio. That's why I'm behind the mic and not on TV, right? But what can we do, or what can you do to paint a picture of kind of what a literacy block looks like for our listeners so they understand kind of what's going on?
I think it depends on what part of literacy we're doing. If it's word study, they are a lot of times in their computers working alongside with me because they can access my slides on their computers as we're moving through the lesson.
So a true integration of technology in that regard. Okay.
Yeah. Same thing with reading. As we're moving through the story, they have their book, but they can also have access to everything online as well. So reading, sometimes if they're doing independent reading, they might move around the classroom and be sitting with a partner and engaging in reading that way. Writing, a lot of times they love to go around the room and find a nice quiet spot so that they can just get lost in their story that they're writing. We just finished our narrative stories that they're very proud of, and they did such a great job.
So talk to me about a lesson or a story that you would be helping them walk through yourself as you're teaching a strategy or address, trying to, for lack of a better way to say, attack a story and break it down so that they understand what is it they're learning.
I think probably the biggest heartwarming teacher moment that I had was when we were looking at our fantasy stories, and we had been reading different fantasy stories, and the last one was a play. And we started doing the traditional where we read it together, and I read it, and they all stopped and they were like, Miss Turner, we just want to be in the play. Can we just be the characters in the play? And I said, yes. And so they very quickly, but they were so great. And they were, and so we were talking about the stage directions and how the stage directions aren't said aloud, but you act these out. So they were able to really engage in the reading in just a very authentic way. And every single person had a part. They might have been just part of the jury, but they all had a part. They were all engaged, and you could look out and you could see everyone was following along because they did not want to miss their line. And so they were practicing inflection in their reading. They were practicing, following along and watching as other people were reading, and all of these different aspects of reading that they got to engage in, and they wanted to. Like, this was what they wanted to do.
And all of that you described supported the fluency with which they were approaching the reading.
Yes.
That's good. And truly words bouncing off the page and coming to life as they acted it out. Oh,
exactly.
I love that.
Yeah.
I've heard the plays are popular.
Oh, okay.
Quite a few classrooms.
And what's great too is that for small group literacy, they have readers theater that's already done and ready. And so kids who really love that part of reading have asked, are able to engage in it. And it's great for our ML learners to practice their listening and their speaking. So it's already built into the program.
That's good. And I know, as we talked about earlier, and Cynthia, this dovetails right into specifically the teachers and the students that you directly support, but our bilingual students, as we said, also have access to our literacy program. But obviously it looks a little different as they're learning, anchoring themselves in their native language while bridging to understanding and learning English. Can you just give a snippet or a little understanding of what that looks like?
Yeah. So in our 3rd through 5th grade bilingual classrooms, our students are engaging in the shared reading and vocabulary lessons. They work in one language for 5 days and then switch on over to the other language. So every 5 days, the lesson changes language. They get to engage in a story in one language. And then when they switch stories, it is in the other. And it really creates that like commonality or bridge across both languages because they're experiencing the theme of the unit within both their home language and in English. And so it has been very, first of all, beneficial to have these two resources that align so well together. And it has allowed for bilingual teachers to be more included, per se, in planning with their team. It has also allowed to make those linguistics assets more visible for students so they understand like that they can draw upon their home language or vice versa when they may be struggling with something. And it has allowed teachers to be a lot more explicit within those connections. Like I'm walking around classrooms and I'm seeing charts where students have really deeply analyzed the language and made connections based on that.
That's good. That's good. And I know something that we support in language that we don't use here in West Aurora is those kids. We don't have conversations about those kids. We embrace all of our students. And Heather, can you talk to me about when you have students who are learning English or ML students, there's still a bridge and a strategy with which you approach supporting them. This isn't just putting them in a bilingual classroom. There are strategies that you're utilizing as well. Can you talk about that?
Absolutely. So as someone who engages in multiple languages myself, I understand how language acquisition works in and of itself. So a lot of things that I like to do is I repeat myself. Depending on the level of the student, I might slow down my speech just to make it so that if you articulate it very clearly, a lot of times like listening, it'll be easier to understand. Visuals. I put things up on the board. I write things down. All of my math lessons, I have all of the directions pre-written out on the board. So that way I can say it, but they also can access it visually. They can read it and they can have it there and they can process it in their own time and reference back to it. So with the great thing about the HMH is they have all of the stories right there in front of them. They can highlight words that they don't know. I've been pre-reading with a lot of my students, taking some of the time that we have that's flexible and pre-reading with students. What words don't you know? How can we figure it out? And that's been really helpful for my ML students to pre-read it because then when they read it back again, they're able to engage in the whole class at a much higher rate, and they're comparable with our monolingual students.
Sure. And what you articulated there or shared is something that probably most people don't understand because they do it naturally, which is, and Cynthia, you can highlight this. So much of what we do when we're reading is taking in context clues. We're looking at pictures. We're looking at, okay, where does that word fit in the larger paragraph? And that's part of understanding the English language. We just take it for granted, but at the same time, there is nuance to how things are said that can send a message that's part of what the students are understanding as well, not just the words on the paper.
For sure. I mean, I can think of, like, for example, multiple meaning words. That's a very common misconception. You know, for multilingual learners, maybe they've been exposed to a certain word, but not the other definition of that word. And that can create some confusion. So definitely, like, pre-teaching that vocabulary is a really good strategy.
That's good. That's good. All right. As we look to wrap up a little bit, we want to celebrate. So can you highlight what's a win? What's an early win as we've started off here with HMH and utilizing it in our classrooms based on your experience as a teacher and then as a department administrator? What do you think? What's a win?
For me, it's just the student enthusiasm. They have been so excited to write their own narrative story and learn how to effectively write that like an author, and just be excited about engaging in reading.
Good. Cynthia, what do you think?
I will say, again, the wealth of resources that we can pull from HMH, the teachers, there's a lot of them. And, you know, it takes some time to get familiar with everything, but I have heard from multiple teachers are just thankful that if they need something, they can find it.
Oh, that's good.
To really support the wide variety of students that we have.
That's here. Awesome. So now it's the crystal ball moment. You know, today we're in end of September. We're coming up on the end of the quarter. If you were to project into the third quarter or the end of the year, what would be your hope? What would success look like in terms of engaging in the program for a semester at that point and really rounding out and I think hitting your stride in terms of knowing how this thing runs? What do you think? What does success look like?
I think success would be students having more autonomy in finding their own understanding in the literacy. So a big thing in fifth grade that we're working on is inferencing. How can you read a text independently and find what the words mean independently? So for me as a fifth grade teacher, how can you take charge of your own learning and know when to ask for help, know where to go for answers, and how to engage in the learning in a more independent fashion.
So be familiar enough with the program, the resources to really think about your thinking.
Yes.
So we're going to use a college word.
Yes.
That metacognition.
Yes.
Is that what it is, right?
The metacognition. Yep.
I love that you, in inferencing, even that is a stacked comprehension skill that carries so many others with it.
Yes.
So I like that you highlighted inferencing in terms of understanding and processing the future. But what meaning are you bringing to the literacy or the words that you're reading?
Correct. And that's a huge fifth grade skill. I mean, a lot of the test questions that they get in those high stakes testing are, what does this word mean given the context of this of this excerpt? So
sure. All right, Cynthia, your turn.
Yeah, I'll get maybe a more primary, like a K2 answer.
Sure.
It would look like students, especially during their foundational skills, being very familiar within what that routine is like so that they can really focus fully on the decoding skills. Like they are, like you said, Heather, looking then at their text and are finding independence and being able to decode those words on their own. I think it means that students are just more confident readers after that. And they know the strategies that if they don't know how to read a word, they have a toolbox of things that they can try.
You know what? You set me up pretty well when you just said they have a toolbox, because part of what we're doing here is trying to connect with our families at home. So what would you say is a strategy that a parent could use as they're trying to, or they're looking to support their student in their development at home? What are strategies that parents can use? What do you think? Cynthia, if you want to start us.
Yeah. So we are sending a parent letter home at the beginning of every module that we start with HMH. So you can be on the lookout for that. And that has an explanation of what the theme of the module. So what kind of stories are the students reading for the next 3 or 4 weeks, whether that be fantasy, what skills are they working on? So that's something that you can definitely, talk to your student about what they're reading in class, talk to them about what they're writing. Every new unit, they start a new writing piece. So if it was a narrative, asking like, what's your narrative about? Maybe even share it with me. Or when they get to the end and they publish it, maybe they publish it to you, and that's a part of that process. So really, reading with the student and like making those connections.
That's good. I remember when I was teaching, working with parents, just the the recommendation that especially our primary students engage them in reading environmental print. Look at the cereal box.
Yeah.
Sound out, what letters do you see? What sound does that letter make? There are little things where literacy is coming at us all the time, and we could take advantage of that. I like how you are articulated or shared some very specific strategies that our program has to help guide our parents. So they should keep an eye out for, what was it called again?
It's a parent letter. It
Just
would
a parent
be sent
letter.
through,
Okay.
The messenger or
Very
email.
good. Very good.
Yeah.
All right, Heather. How about yourself? You're the teacher here. We're leaning on your shoulders. What can our parents do to help you out?
I mean, I think the biggest way is just to, I know, Cynthia, you had talked about it, but it's just talk to them. What did you read today? What did you like? What did you learn? For the play, what part did you play?
Mm-hmm.
What were some of the lines? What were, speaking from a fifth grade lens, talking about, we talk about figurative language all the time, similes and metaphors, and just trying to talk with them about what they're learning and reinforcing what we're doing in the school day at home would be great.
And again, just to highlight the complexity of what it is that we're doing, we're asking them to not only just read the material that we're putting in front of them, but you just talked about write about it.
Yes.
So they have to read
Yes.
it, process it, understand it in their brain,
Yes.
and then produce something themselves, with there's a whole nother set of skills that we're looking to reinforce, so that verbal or exchange or talking to them is tremendously helpful because it organizes their thinking. I like how you articulated that. Cynthia, Heather, thank you for being here today and for the work that you're doing with our students. It's great to hear both the big picture, as we talked about, and really what it looks like in the classroom. So thank you for bringing us all into your classroom, into the classrooms that you work with. You're representing all of the folks that are working together to support our students. So again, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in. We are excited about where this new literacy program is taking us, and we look forward to sharing more updates throughout the year. And don't forget, you can follow and subscribe to the West Aurora 129 podcast on Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, SoundCloud, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next time.